What's your opinion on fake news and how much of, these people's platforms should be and their opinions should be based on actual data?
Well, so I think there's a lot of fake news out there.
Mm-hmm.
I think on both sides of the aisle, politically.
Yeah.
I've written, I have a Substack blog and I write on political issues. Now they come from the right because I'm a conservative.
Yeah.
But one thing, I had a friend years ago. I would send out emails with information on them, and a friend of mine told me he didn't believe anything until he heard it from me. I think, unfortunately, people consider themselves too busy or not smart enough to know what's going on, so
Right.
they allow their opinions to be manipulated by experts, quote unquote experts.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you what's interesting is, I've been involved as an expert witness on 260 litigations.
Right.
And every time I'm an expert with one opinion, there's an expert on the other side with a
Another
different
one.
opinion.
Yeah.
And so I think when we start believing experts, I'm not sure what the solution is. When we start believing experts, it's dangerous.
Yeah.
I think what's better is people should read both sides of an opinion and try to determine for themselves which one makes sense. But that's really hard to do, and most people aren't willing to do that.
Right. Right. So now get back to the symposium. So you figured this out in a matter of a day, and you started
few
to write
hours,
and
actually,
you
yeah.
started to write your findings. Were you checking with other people to see if they were also going to submit their findings and if you were all coming up with the same answer?
Well, to be perfectly honest, so it was about 3 hours in when I found that you could convert this stuff to a Word document of gibberish.
Mm-hmm.
And I turned to the guy next to me, who was the guy we had elected to go up later to Lindell.
Right.
And who also, Lindell, surprisingly selected as his expert witness for the arbitration, which was weird because that's a mistake. If, I know litigation, you don't pick someone who was already close to the event. You want someone completely outside.
Yeah.
But he picked him. Anyway, I turned the screen to him when I saw these word processing commands in the file before I knew exactly what it was. And I said, "Do you know what this is?" And he just glanced at it, said no. Then I put it into Word, got the gibberish. So what I did is I told everyone, I said, "Hey, I'm going to go back to the hotel and, think about this some more."
Mm-hmm.
And I went out and as I'm walking to the hotel, I called my wife and I whispered into the phone. I said, "Think about what you want to do with $5 million.
What did she say?
I don't know. She just started laughing. She said, "You found it?" I said, "You're not going to believe it, but I actually can prove it." And I went to my hotel room, wrote up a report, which I do all the time. I can do that really quickly. Wrote up a report with all the details. It's a 15-page report, but thousands of pages of exhibits.
Mm-hmm.
I registered it with the U.S. Copyright Office because I thought there's
Smart.
a possibility someone might lose it.
Mm-hmm.
But then the next day they gave us a whole bunch more files.
Mm-hmm.
I essentially did the same thing with those files. It gets a little complicated. Then later in the day they gave us even more files, and I thought, okay, this is the way they're going to, keep anyone from getting the prize.
Yeah.
But the point was that I talked with people. One person told me at the end of the conference that he'd submitted I don't think, actually, I think I read about it somewhere. He claimed to have submitted a report.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually contacted him and said, "Do you want to do this arbitration together?" And he said no. So it was just me against Lindell.
Wow. So you submitted your findings. Did they respond? Did they, give you, their version of why you were wrong?
No, some reports are saying that I got a rejection from the judges of the contest, but I didn't get anything until a few months later when I filed for arbitration.
Okay.
I just got silence.
And why did you finally go down that road and say, I need to do this, and I'm going to take him to court or arbitration?
Yeah. So, if you look at my history, I've done this before. I just, I've lost money bringing litigation when I think I'm in the right and the public needs to know.
Yeah.
And I thought the public really needs to know about this. Lindell is still going around to this day. In fact, he says that nobody challenged or doubted his results. And I can tell you every single expert in that room doubted his results. But most of them didn't submit I can say none of them but me submitted a report. Even the gentleman who said he did, it's questionable whether it's, it was a report that would qualify.
Right. So, but do you think that what Mike Lindell is doing is almost hurting the case for Trump or anyone that is trying to claim voter fraud with some sort of credibility? Because his, what he's claiming is just so far-fetched and there is no data.
Yeah, I think actually, so I've heard rumors from people I respect who think that Lindell is actually working with some, organization, could be the FBI or China, to actually hurt Trump's chances. I'm not sure that I believe that. In fact, I doubt it very much.
Uh-huh.
But actually, I've told Republicans that this is hurting Trump because, so for example, every case that challenged the vote in the 2020 election was funded by Lindell and uses the same people who were defending this data that's fake data. And although Lindell is going around saying, oh, these cases are being thrown out because of the liberal judges or the corrupt judicial system, it's being thrown out because it's very easy to see that this is fake data.
Right.
And if I think there should be legitimate challenges. I mean, I think at least legitimate investigations. I think it's in the American public's best interest to investigate anything where there's, because let me put it this way: if there is fraud, we need to know,
Yeah.
and if there isn't fraud, people need to be assured that the voting works correctly.
Absolutely.
But Lindell is destroying any legitimate efforts with putting all these resources into fake efforts.
Right, right. So what did you actually have to show to the arbitrator to get him or her to side with you? I mean, did they have to go through the data, or you just had to show that what you found was not accurate?
Yeah, I had to show that what I found was not accurate. It wasn't related to the 2020 election. It really, Lindell's arguments kept shifting, and different people on his team had different arguments. But what it came down to was Lindell's team, his lawyers and experts, said they hedged on this because it sounded so ridiculous, but they would say that anything could be related to the election, and I had to prove it was not. And one of the arguments was, if the file, if somebody hands the file to me and says this is related to the election, that makes it related to the election. Or Lindell saying it's related to the election makes it related, because they were saying, oh, we didn't ask him to show hacking or fraud in the election. We just said he had to show this was not related to the election with 100% certainty, and he couldn't show it with 100% certainty. There was still some possibility that it was related to the election.
Right.
And my argument was that that's ridiculous. The law, I know the law well enough, and the lawyers supported me, my lawyers supported me on this, that any interpretation of a contract, and I signed a written contract, any interpretation has to be reasonable. So no reasonable person would say, if I hand you this bottle of water and say, hey, I drank this at the election, that this is somehow related to the election.
Right.
And the arbitrators agreed with me and my side, saying that's such a ridiculous interpretation, no reasonable person would say that. And the arbitrator said I had shown that the data was not related to the election.